we're real happy about that. That was a all right, it looks like we're live. Hello,
Right.
everybody. I'm T. Fugner. I'm the editorial director for comics at King Features and Comics Kingdom. And you're welcome back to another episode of Comics Kingdom Live. Today we have Bill Bettwy with us. Bill is the creator of Take It from the Tinkersons and our all new digital first comic, #sales. Welcome, Bill.
Hey.
How are you?
Hi.
How's it going?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing well. So Bill, let's tell the audience a little bit about yourself. How long have you been into comics? How long have you been drawing?
A long time.
A long
Uh,
time.
yeah. I mean, it's the same story everybody has, right? Been drawing since I was a kid. All that stuff. Really started out trying to get into animation, which late '90s, early 2000s, doing scripts and storyboards and character design in that arena. I was always drawing comic strips, all during that same time. Submitted several, all rejected, as a typical cartoonist life. And then I drew one, came up with one that actually I think crossed paths with you, T,
Yes.
and then here we are. So it was a little bit different. It was based on just just Tillman at that time. Actually called Take It from Circus, if you remember that. And
I
then
don't remember the name, but I do remember this comic.
yeah. So
Yeah.
we changed the name because of the family circus. There was a little bit of confusion there, I guess, but we tweaked it around, and then Take It from the Tinkersons came around. I mean, that was, boy, I think I submitted that 2008 or 9,
It
and
was
then
around then, yeah.
yeah, and then King Features contacted me in 2010, and then it launched in 2013. So
So
it's a long cycle.
it is a long cycle, and I think one of the things that's I think interesting for fans who are watching right now to know is I was submissions editor for about 6 years when I first joined King Features, and I looked at like anywhere from 2 to 10 comics a day usually was what we got submissions wise. So we're talking, hundreds of comics a month even, and of those comics, Bill's is the only one that came in from that submission slush pile that made it from the slush pile into syndication. So it's a really tough thing to get into if you don't already have a reputation in the industry, or you don't start out somewhere else. It's getting into syndicated comics is like it's like a rich man getting into heaven, I think.
Yeah, that's how I felt. But it's funny that after it launched, and I don't want to name names here, but I was interviewed for a certain article, and I remember the guy who interviewed me asked me, where did I come from, and I told him, oh, I just, I'm in Pennsylvania. I work for a minor league baseball team, and he said, so you didn't know anybody? You didn't work on any other projects? And I said, no. So then when the article came out, I mean, it was worded in a way that made it sound like I was just a hobo that rolled off of a train. Wow. I mean, like no experience, nothing whatsoever. I never went to school for graphic design or anything like that. So, yeah, I mean, yeah, it's like you won the lottery, right? So but I love it. It's everything I've been working for. So,
Well, we love your comics. So, I think it's also a really valuable thing, I think, for people who are aspiring to become cartoonists to know is that, in spite of, we just talked about how narrow that window is.
uh,
You can get in there without going to art school. You can get in there without having, a long, illustrious art career behind you. So,
right.
so
You
there's
can be a hobo that rolled off of a train. Yeah.
so there's lots of ways to do it, and
Mhm.
and if you're do a lot of work and you're talented and really, I think, really sincere about what you're creating and authentic about it, that's I think the most important thing. And I know you always are. So I want to segue into talking about the Tinkersons, which I know is, for you, it's a very sincere and very authentic comic.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about the Tinkersons.
Uh, well, I always say that there's a little bit of the Bettwys in the Tinkersons, but the Tinkersons are not the Bettwys. So a lot of the strips that you'll see, obviously the audience out of Altoona wouldn't necessarily know, but you'll start to see some of the things that are happening to my family happening in the Tinkersons. But again, I get some feedback around town here that's like, oh, Tiff is my wife, but it's not. But some of the situations just happen to link up for a strip. But I just like to write. I'm not a gag writer. I mean, I really think like a single panel gag cartoon. It's really hard for me. Like that's tough. I mean, I'm used to a certain beat of writing. I need to kind of lay out a little bit of dialogue to get to the end of the strip. And I like to think like I like to write more of a situation, a relatable situation that than I do a gag. So I usually try and write the Tinkersons and their miseries or situations that they get themselves into as a relatable situation that people will connect to. So sometimes the Tinkersons might not be super gag funny, but I'm hoping that people are connecting with the situation that's inside of that story. So
Yeah, for sure. So I think one of the things that we've been talking about in terms of relatability and authenticity in a comic is one of the things that you've gotten very invested in is vegetarianism. And
yes.
that's something that you brought into Tinkersons. So I'd love for you to tell folks a little bit about that.
Okay. Yeah. So uh again, there's a little bit of the Betwys in the Tinkersons, but the Tinkersons aren't the Betwys. But we watched this awful documentary on Netflix about 3 years ago called "What the Health," and it's just so. I mean, we've always been right on the brink of being vegetarian and stuff. So we love animals, and we're all about animal rights and save the planet, clean the oceans, and we're all about that. So it's been about 3 years since we started our journey into this. We're still not full vegetarian. We're pescatarians, so we eat a little bit of fish here and there. It's so hard, It's so hard to be full vegetarian. I mean, we are trying to get there, and we mostly, even when we eat fish, it's only every so often. So, but I want to, I've gotten to the point, and I see what's happening in the world, and I don't want I never want to bring politics into this comic strip, and I always wanted the Tinkersons to be kind of on their own. Like they live in the moment, but I mean, they live in the time, but they don't necessarily live in the moment, right? So like they live in 2020, but they don't necessarily have to live in what's happening in 2020. So, but what I see is, the trending thing is, global warming, climate change, and I'm just so passionate about that I kind of want to get that message out uh, through this platform and through these characters. And I feel like I feel like the Tinkersons have sincerity to them, and the writing has some sincerity to them. So it's not just going to be a preachy thing, and it's not going to turn into this take it from the vegetarians or anything like that, right? It's just going to be a messaging about take it from the Tinkersons, right? If we don't take care of our planet, we can't move to another one. So uh just messaging that's going to be peppered in and out, but nothing that's going to be a hardcore consistent message, but just every so often.
Yeah, I mean, I think like one of the things that's I think important to the core of the Tinkersons is that it's about a family. It's about a family with kids. So you've got kids and you've got parents. And I think kids right now are, we're seeing more and more kids getting deeply invested in environmental issues. And so it makes a lot of sense that if you're doing a strip about, about a family with kids living in 2020, that
Mhm.
that family is going to be getting invested in those things too.
Absolutely. And I have 3 kids, and they're teenagers, and they're starting to become more aware of the things like this in the world, and being more proactive in the things that they do. So, just taking that and into into thought and portraying that through the Tinkersons. It's just the right time for me as a cartoonist to expand their dialogue a little bit. So, but I've always wanted the Tinkersons to be a family of 2020. Comic strips kind of have a vintage feel to them, and I wanted kids to speak the way they speak in today's world. So, when the Tinkersons first came out, there was some pushback on like how the kids talk back to the parents, but that's how they do it. That's at least in my family. So I wanted to write the Tinkersons in a way where the kids actually act the way they do now and not in 1950, and that so when there's these families out there and they're at home and they're all fighting and they think that they're the crazy family and that everything's wrong, that it's not, right, that they can read the Tinkersons and feel like, oh man, wow, we're not as crazy as we thought we were. This is actually a real thing. So that, again, that relatableness to it, that's what I'm try to get that connection.
No, and I definitely think that comes across. So I want to move on to your new comic, and I'm
Yeah,
going to do this
great.
every time I talk about it. Hashtag
Yeah,
sales.
hashtag. Yep.
Um, so because this is relatable in a completely different way.
Mhm.
Tinkersons. Sometimes we get some work comics in there, but it's really at the core about that family.
Mhm.
Sales is entirely about work.
Yeah,
And it's specifically about sales work. So tell
yeah,
us a little bit. So tell us a little bit about sales, how it came to be, the concept behind it, and
yes.
yeah.
Okay, so yeah, originally, again, I wrote this for animation, for to be an animated show. And as I was playing with it and creating marketing pieces for this, I started to realize, oh, and you go on LinkedIn and you go on social media, whatever, and there's always memes and gifs about sales and funny things about sales, whatever. And I've been in sales, I mean, really truly, like my whole life. I mean, if I wasn't truly in sales, like an actual sales position, I've been selling something, right? Trying to sell a comic strip, trying to sell a show, or whatever it would be, uh, or I've been in marketing, so which is all that tie-in, uh, and I noticed that there was always office humor, but there was never just flat out a strip about sales, so hardcore, laser focused on sales. And I think it's a huge market, that a huge audience, because everybody, I feel, at some point in their life has been in some kind of selling position, or has had a sales job, that they can find this all relatable. And I've gotten enough experience now where I know enough about all the different CRMs and all the different sales techniques and stuff, that I I can bring some humor to that and twist it and tweak it. And now that we're doing this as a digital property only, it opens up our scope of what we can do, right? I mean, we can do a long form comic, we can do just a meme, we can do an animated gif. So that was my main interest in this, is that I didn't want it to just to be a 4 panel across. I want the characters to come out, and they will over time, but I want those sales situations to be the front runner at this point. So yeah, it's a lot of fun, and I'm having a lot of fun with it.
Yeah, it is a lot of fun. And I think it's really one of the things that you're doing so well with it is you're really capturing this, you're capturing everything that you can do digitally, that you, like you just said, that you can't do if you have a set format comic, whether it's a panel or a strip or page or a half a page. If you've got that format, it's got to be that format every day. And one of the amazing things about digital is that it allows cartoonists to play with that format, that it doesn't have to be the standard size. It does, and it doesn't even have to be the same size every day.
Right.
Which is one of those things that I think, we've got right now, we've got we've got hashtag sales launched, and we have Ray the Doe launched. We've got, we've got a couple comics that a couple other comics that are digital first comics, but I think that that's what we're going to see more and more of as we bring more digital comics online, is comics that really challenge the concept of standard strip, that can play with that format more and more.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. It was awesome that you guys were up for it, right away, and that was great, and we worked together to establish how we were going to do that. So, yeah, I'm hoping that this continues. I'm going to try to keep it at 5 days a week. It's a lot of work. I thought at first, hey, this is going to be pretty easy, but because it's really simple. I build sales is different, so I build everything in Illustrator. So I don't hand draw hashtag sales. I build them per se. So it's a whole different concept. So I got to flip back and forth between that and then the drawing style of the Tinkersons. So but I've caught up. I've caught up to myself and figured it all out. So just spreading out your schedule and making sure you're in the right mindset. In writing mode, right? that you're concentrating on each one separately. But yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's great.
Cool. So you work both digitally and analog, depending on what you're doing?
Well, I'm digital across
Digital across, okay.
yeah, everything's done on my Surface Pro. So
Got it. Got it.
yeah, I use Clip Studio
Okay.
and Photoshop for the Tinkersons, and
Cool.
then I use basically Illustrator then for
Illustrator. Yeah.
sales.
That's very cool. So do you have a favorite? Do you have one that you like better, or they just bring different things to the table for you?
Yeah, I would I like them both probably the same. It's fun. I do and I don't. So it's funny because like I'll start out the week with hashtag sales. So that's my Monday, Tuesday. I start out heavy with that. So I'm deep into Illustrator in those 2 days, and then I'm finishing up either the writing or the layout the rest of the week there. But when I finally then I'm done with that and I move to the Tinkersons, man, it feels good to pick up a pen and start drawing in Clip Studio. So I like both. Yeah, it's just they're different. It's just completely two different styles. I mean, I would imagine. I don't know. I mean, I would think if you want to be able to tell, if you didn't know, you want to be able to tell that I'm the one doing hashtag sales. I'm not. Maybe you can. I don't know.
Very different artistically. It's a very different style from Tinkersons.
Yeah.
So I feel like there's still like you've got this great like bite to your humor that that's there from both of them, and the writing is
Yeah.
I mean the writing's part of what makes both of them
Right.
but I think that that's really consistent. So sales. I let me I know there's like a ton of characters. You've got an entire sales team at it's called Ship It, right?
Yeah. Ship It Inc.
Shipping,
Yeah.
Ship It Inc., the shipping company, the
Mhm.
fictional shipping company.
Yeah. Shipping
And
products. Yes.
yes, shipping products company. They
Yeah.
don't
Yeah.
actually ship anything. They just
Yeah.
sell shipping products. So Ship It Inc. Um, there's a whole bunch of people working there. Can you tell us a little bit about, give us some highlights of some of these characters and your favorite parts?
Oh, a lot of it's you write from experiences, right? So you have to take the things that you've known, people that you've met, and it's tough. It's tough to just create a character out of nothing, right? Like every character that you ever come up with has some kind of personality trait from someone that you've run into, worked with, or dealt with over the past. So I don't want to necessarily name names of like maybe who like certain characters are tied to, but there's a lot of people there are a lot of characters in there that go back to reference like certain people I've known in my past jobs and different things. But I don't know. I mean, Ronnie's one of my favorite characters. I mean, just because I'm a marketing guy, and I haven't got marketing as involved yet. I'm still flushing out the sales end of things. But Roger's definitely the lead character in this, and he's definitely my favorite, just because of his backstory and what he's been having to deal with. I put a lot of myself into Roger. I think the struggles that he's had and the way he's going to get himself dug out of it, and his perseverance to get himself dug out of it. And then Frida's great. but again, I'm looking at, I'm watching, thinking of these tied into the characters that, the people that I've kind of tied them to. But
Oh, okay.
yeah,
So
but I like them
I
all,
won't
right?
ask you. I won't ask you like which people you knew who tried to do business in strip clubs and casinos because I don't want to get anybody in
For
trouble.
JoJo, yeah, yeah. Well, it's fun. JoJo's not necessarily one guy. There's several people that all kind of tied into
All
the.
right.
And JoJo's great. He's just that typical dirt bag, right? That everyone already has, like some guy that's always just, you know, saying the wrong things and just doing the wrong things. But yeah, he's a good character to have, and I'm hoping that over time there will be more characters. But I'm hoping that at this point there's enough of a diversity there that shows you a different range of personalities and characters, and the more that you start to see them, the more you'll start to connect with them, and connect with them depending on what kind of job title you might have. So good.
Yeah. No, yeah, they're, I mean, they really are. There's just, if you haven't checked out hashtag sales yet, you go to Comics Kingdom and you can check out, there's a real long list of characters, and some of them have been more prominent than others, but they're all really delightful. And I'm really looking forward to getting to know them better. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah. So now you've been doing two comics now. And I know you've been doing sales for hashtag sales for a little bit, for just a little bit of time, and Tinkersons for a few years now. And I'm wondering, so like some of your favorite things about, and it can be either comic, favorite things about writing, drawing them, things you've learned from the process, things you've learned from the characters.
Yeah, I mean, I like the fact that I can. It's a job that I can do from anywhere, right? And it's a job that It gives me the ability to have a little bit of a voice, without going on social media and you know screaming and yelling and posting stupid things, that I can live through the characters and let them speak for me in a way. So I, I I like being behind the scenes, and I like being behind the curtain. And like this interview is something I typically wouldn't do. So uh you're lucky that I like
Thank
you.
you so much. Thank you.
Yeah. But I do like the fact that I can say things and get away with things because I'm saying it through the characters, and saying it through a humorous way that isn't taken seriously, but I can still kind of maybe get a little elbow in there from time to time.
Yeah, that's great. So are there things, I know we talked a little bit about the environmental stuff already, but you've been doing Tinkersons for 6 years now.
Yes.
Yeah.
7 years.
Seven. It's
Yeah,
gonna be
it was
seven.
7 in
So
April. Yeah.
yeah. So you've been doing Tinkersons for 7 years, and have there been things that have kind of changed over time for you? Things that you've changed, things that just sort of changed on their own, and you're like, oh,
Well, definitely the artwork.
yeah,
Uh, I mean, I think when you look back on at anybody's comic strip, the very first ones just don't look like the ones that are currently being, published. And the Tinkersons, I feel like, God, I mean, I can't even stand the way they looked on the early on. I thought they looked good then, but now I look back at them and I was like, oh my gosh, I can't stand the way they look. I think that the drawing has gotten better, and I feel like that it's uh, grown to a point where I think I've finally gotten consistent with it. You work on it, you tweak on it, and then all of a sudden, you think you have a good look. And there's been times where I've gotten like just a new pen, right? Like there's times I got like a new stylus for like a Surface
oh
Pro,
yeah,
and then but that's not. It looks too thick, and then I'm using so then I have to like change the point on the pen, the point size on the pen. But then I'll do like a week, and then like that text all the text was like real thick and black and didn't match like the week before. I don't know. So anyway, I think I've gotten like more consistent now. I'm more aware of where I'm at on in the squares, but it definitely is it takes time, you know. I mean, 7 years and I'm still figuring out, you know, the best way to do things and the best way to write things. And I'm hoping it's getting better. I think it's getting better. So we'll see.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I obviously worked with the late Mort Walker for a number of years, and he was doing Beetle Bailey for 60 something years, and he was always noticing things changing or learning things about his characters up until those last strips he did. So I think
Yeah.
that's gonna that's always gonna happen, and it's really cool. It's
It
I
is
think
cool.
it's very cool.
Yeah.
So uh so so I want to ask you a little bit about you as a cartoonist, and let's go back to like Baby Bill, and
Okay.
what were some of the comics that you loved when you were a kid?
Oh, Charlie Brown.
Charlie Brown.
Oh, Charlie Brown, Peanuts for sure, right?
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, that was everything, everything and everything. I mean, I still to this day we have a DVD player still, and it's only to play the Charlie Brown videos. Uh,
Oh,
yeah, at Christmas and Thanksgiving and Halloween. And my kids are teenagers, and they still watch it. I make them watch it sometimes, but don't, they still, I know they still want to watch it, and it's great. I mean, I don't know of any comic strip that was even close to being that successful as far as worldwide. I mean, obviously you got the Calvin and Hobbes and the Far Sides and the Beetle Baileys and all those, but Blondie and stuff. But it's Charlie Brown was, I mean, man, growing up, that was it. That was everything that I
yeah.
wanted to be at that point. Yeah.
I always remember, like, when I was a little kid watching that Thanksgiving special and trying to
Oh,
figure out what the food was on the table at the end when, Snoopy's Thanksgiving feast, right?
oh yeah,
Because, like,
yeah.
you can tell there's like the popcorn, but then there's like some weird, like, bright colored
Jelly,
shapes and
jelly beans,
the jelly
toast,
beans. Yeah, like,
pretzel sticks.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Oh my gosh. But oh, that was always the best. So
yeah.
yeah, yeah. So are there now, so comics now, and I actually, one of the things we should mention is you've also written for Archie, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Four different Archie stories.
That's
The
awesome.
one has been put on hold, obviously, because of
Yeah.
the whole coronavirus thing. But that was already written and done. So they said that might come out next summer, and that's a great one. Archie and Reggie are battling it out. They're cutting lawns in the neighborhood, so they have a competition there. But that uh, man, I tell you what, I grew up on Archie comics. I mean, it was, I mean, you talk about like when I was little with Charlie Brown. I mean, when I got to like the point where I was reading comic books, it was all Archie all the time. And then I got to the point even when I was in like, my late teens and 20s that I'll go to comic book stores and just buy old Archies, the ones that were like 25
Oh,
cents.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
just I've read them all the time, and so it was in, and I still have the string of emails from Victor Gorlick that I reached out to him. First time I reached out to him was in 2009, and
So around
expressed
the same time you sent us your comic strip.
yes, right. So I sent him an email saying that I wanted to write for Archie Comics. Um, and then he replied and said to send in some samples. So I sent in some samples. And then a couple weeks later, I just followed up with them and nothing. So I have this, it's great. So it's like every 3 months I was hitting this Victor with another email, another email, another email. So it was in then June of 2019. This is 10 years later.
Wow.
I emailed him and said, I still want to write for Archie. What do I have to do? He said, call me Monday. And then we drove up to New York and met with them. And Oh, what's the name of Westchester, or not Westchester? Yeah, Westchester.
Westchester.
Yeah, yeah,
Uh,
and met with him up
Where
there.
the X-Men live.
Yeah, yeah. And then, they gave me a couple. Uh, they said they wanted a summer script and a fall script, so I wrote a couple scripts, and then they took a couple more. So I'm hoping that when things pick back up here, we get into writing some more. But I love it. I absolutely love, and it was so surreal. I think, and I really it really hit me. I remember when I was writing the script for the first or yeah, the first story, and I started putting dialogue into Mr. Weatherby's mouth, and I was like, wow, I am writing dialogue for Mr. Weatherby, and it's great. I'm because I love Archie comics to death. So
Oh, that's
I hope
great.
that I hope that continues.
We love Archie too. King Features and Archie have a really great partnership on our licensed products, and
Yeah.
they're fantastic. So we certainly love them, and we love that you're writing for them.
Oh,
So
I love it. I
yeah, yeah. So you obviously started doing comic strips, and then you started doing comic books. For you, what was the toughest thing about switching from like these little tiny like 4-panel jokes to writing a full story?
I I think writing a full story is easier.
Easier. All right.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah. I'm more of a character driven dialogue writer than I am like I was saying, I'm more
Yeah.
than a gag writer. So it's better for me to kind of write out a relatable story uh, than to try and just write gags. It's just it's difficult. I mean, I'm not saying I can't do it, and I'll do it, but it's just that my style of writing lends into the longer story, form stories. But yeah, I mean, the Tinkersons, that's easy, and that it the writing part never really I don't really get hung up on. It's just finding time to then get it all laid out. The artwork and the drawing and the artwork is the time consuming part for me. The writing part I don't really fret about. Something always pops into my head. So.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's awesome. So we're about it's about time to start wrapping up.
Okay.
Um, and I just wanted to, know, and I know you said a little bit about this with the Tinkersons, but from you, for folks who read your work, what's the thing that you most hope for them to get out of it?
I when people read either the Tinkersons or Sales, I want them to feel that, especially the Tinkersons, that they they get a connection with the writing that I'm putting out there. That they, I always wanted, like I said earlier, I want people to read the Tinkersons and realize that they're not alone in their struggles, and they're not alone in the things, situations that their families into. Uh, Things aren't always as bad as they seem,
Yeah.
right? And sometimes you can get yourself into a vacuum and think that your family is out of control, but really it's not. And when you read the Tinkersons and you can maybe take that away, that wow, this guy's writing this, so obviously people are in the same situation that we are. It's going to be okay. You can work your way through it.
Yeah.
That's really that's a really big goal of mine with the Tinkersons, and Sales is the same thing. That no matter how bad, I mean, everybody hates their sales job. Really, I mean, like sales is sales, and it's hard. I mean, it's a hard job. So I'm not saying you hate. I mean, you like it, but there's days where you hate it. Because you can't either get people to buy your product or buy your service or whatever it would be, and it gets you down. So I'm hoping that the hashtag sales can maybe lift you back up by seeing this miserable sales team trying to muddle their way through selling their products. So that's
Yeah.
it.
Well, thank you, Bill. Thank you so much for joining us. Before we leave, I have one fan comment from our live chat. So
That's one more than I thought.
Ruth Horn says, I love the outside of current events appeal to your comic strip. I have chosen it as a new favorite from Comics Kingdom.
Hey, all right.
So anybody who wants to read Take It From the Tinkersons, you can find Take It From the Tinkersons on comicskingdom.com, or in your local paper. If you can't find it in your local paper, you can call your local paper and tell them to take it from the Tinkersons.
Yeah, right
You
on.
can find hashtag sales on comicskingdom.com 5 days a week. Thank you again so much, Bill. Thank you to everybody out there. You can what's your social media? You're on Twitter at Take It From the Tinkersons and Sales Comic, right?
Yeah,
Oh,
right.
the Tinkersons. It's your Twitter at the Tinkersons and at Sales Comic. And
Dale's
yeah,
cartoon. Dale's
Sales
cartoon.
Cartoon. Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you can find Comics Kingdom on Comics Kingdom on pretty much every platform. So so check us out. Thank you all so much, and have a great day.
All right. See ya
Bye.
later.